What if the entire digital world, everything from the phone in your hand to the vast artificial intelligences shaping our future, was built on a fundamental mistake? We've spent 80 years chasing an illusion, a beautiful, clean, and dangerously simple idea. The illusion of the binary world. We built our technological gods on a foundation of absolute certainties, of zeros and ones, of on and off, of true and false. We told ourselves that anything, everything, could be reduced to this black and white perfection. But what if that obsession with precision isn't our greatest virtue, but our most profound limitation? Let's start with that foundational premise. From the moment the first switch was flipped on an early computer, we fell in love with the clarity of digital logic. There's a profound comfort in it. A 1 is always a 1. A 0 is always a 0. There is no maybe, no sort of, no gray area. We constructed an entire civilization on this principle. Financial systems that calculate trillions of transactions with flawless accuracy. GPS systems that guide us with pinpoint precision. Servers that store the sum of human knowledge without losing a single bit. And it worked brilliantly. But this digital universe we've so carefully constructed is a pristine, sterile bubble floating in the middle of a messy, chaotic, and fundamentally analog reality. The real universe doesn't operate in crisp, clean binaries. It lives in the shimmering space between states, in the infinite spectrum of color between black and white. It thrives on variation, ambiguity, and what we in our perfect digital world would call error. Think about the sound of a violin. A digital recording approximates that sound with millions of discrete samples, zeros and ones that represent points on a sound wave. It can be an incredibly accurate approximation, but it's still an approximation. The real sound is a continuous, flowing wave of vibrations, a thing of infinite complexity that can never be perfectly captured by a finite system. Our obsession with binary certainty forces us to translate the rich analog poem of the universe into the rigid, functional prose of code. And in that translation, something is always lost. We've built a world that fights against the very nature of reality, and we are now beginning to see the cracks in that perfect facade. If you want to see the power of imperfection, you don't need to look any further than the mirror. You are the product of 4 billion years of errors. In the biological world, a mistake isn't a catastrophe. It's the engine of creation. A random mutation in a strand of DNA, a genetic typo, a biological glitch, is what gives rise to new traits, new possibilities. The entire breathtaking diversity of life on Earth, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains, wasn't designed with perfect blueprints. It was stumbled upon through a glorious, messy, endless process of trial and error. Chaos is the sculptor of complexity. Our own brains are a testament to this principle. They are not neat, orderly processors executing code line by line. Your brain is an electrical storm, a chaotic network of 86 billion neurons firing in what often looks like random noise. And yet, from this noisy, unpredictable biological hardware, consciousness, creativity, and genius emerge. Stars themselves are born from the gravitational collapse of unstable gas clouds. Ecosystems find balance not through rigid control, but through the dynamic, unpredictable push and pull of millions of competing organisms. In nature, the absence of a perfect central plan isn't a weakness. It's the source of resilience, adaptation, and originality. So here's the question that turns our digital philosophy on its head. If all the most complex, intelligent, and beautiful systems we know of are born from chaos and thrive on unpredictability, why are we so obsessed with building machines that do the exact opposite? What if we could build a computer that thinks less like a calculator and more like a brain, a forest, or a galaxy? To begin that journey, we have to go back to the turn of the 20th century, to a Russian mathematician who dared to find order in the heart of uncertainty. In a scientific world obsessed with the clockwork precision of Newtonian physics, Andrey Markov did something radical. He looked at seemingly random events and asked, what if they're not completely random? His groundbreaking work began by analyzing something surprisingly poetic, the sequences of vowels and consonants in Alexander Pushkin's novel Eugene Onegin. He demonstrated that even in the apparent chaos of language, there are hidden patterns. The probability of the next letter being a vowel is not independent of the current letter. A Q is almost always followed by a U. A vowel is more likely to be followed by a consonant. He showed that the future state of a system doesn't depend on its entire, complex history, but only on its present state. This deceptively simple idea gave birth to Markov chains, a statistical model that transforms uncertainty into insight. It doesn't give you a perfect prediction, but it gives you a probability, a tendency. It tells you the likely next step in a random walk. This was a profound shift. While the rest of the world was trying to eliminate uncertainty with exact equations, Markov gave us a tool to understand it, to work with it. His work laid the mathematical foundation for everything from stock market predictions to the algorithms that power Google search engine and your phone possess predictive text. He taught us that even chaos has a rhythm, and if you listen closely enough, you can start to understand the beat. Decades later, Markov's abstract mathematics would find an explosive and urgent application in the desolate landscapes of Los Alamos, New Mexico. During the Manhattan Project, the world's most brilliant scientists faced a problem that classical mathematics couldn't solve: how to predict the behavior of neutrons in a chain reaction at the core of a nuclear bomb. The journey of a single neutron was pure chaos. It could bounce off a uranium nucleus, get absorbed, or trigger a fission event that would release more neutrons. Each of these events had a certain probability, but trying to calculate every possible path for trillions of neutrons was a task beyond any human or machine at the time. The problem was, quite literally, impossible. Then, a physicist named Stanislaw Ulam had a moment of genius while recovering from an illness and playing solitaire. He wondered, what are the odds that a particular layout of 52 cards will result in a successful game? Like the neutron problem, calculating every possible combination was unthinkable. So he had a simpler idea: why not just play the game 100 times and see how many you win? He took this revolutionary idea to the legendary mathematician John von Neumann. Instead of trying to solve the impossibly complex equations of neutron diffusion directly, they decided to simulate it. They would use a computer, the ENIAC, to roll a digital die for each neutron at each step of its journey. Will it bounce? Will it be absorbed? Will it cause fission? They would run this simulation thousands upon thousands of times, each run a unique story of a possible nuclear reaction. And by averaging the results of all these random stories, a clear pattern would emerge, revealing the overall behavior of the system. Because of the secret nature of the project, and Ulam's uncle's fondness for gambling, they gave this new method a codename: the Monte Carlo Method. It was a radical departure from deterministic science. It was the strategic use of randomness to solve a problem that certainty could not. They were fighting chaos not by eliminating it, but by creating more of it until a hidden truth revealed itself. This method, born from the need to understand atomic energy, is now essential to fields as diverse as finance, weather forecasting, and artificial intelligence. It was the first resounding proof that sometimes the best way to understand an unpredictable world is to embrace its randomness. John von Neumann, the same genius who helped weaponize probability at Los Alamos, was also a central architect of the modern computer. The von Neumann architecture is the blueprint for virtually every digital device you've ever used. But even as the world celebrated the rise of these perfectly precise machines, von Neumann was already seeing their greatest weakness. In his final unfinished work, The Computer and the Brain, he made a stunning observation. Our pursuit of digital perfection was creating systems that were incredibly powerful, but also incredibly fragile. A conventional computer is a marvel of rigid order. But if a single transistor flips a bit incorrectly due to a cosmic ray or a manufacturing defect, the entire system can crash. It has zero tolerance for error. Von Neumann looked at the human brain and saw the complete opposite. It's slow, its components are imprecise, and it's constantly bombarded with noisy signals. And yet, it's remarkably robust. A child can recognize a cat from any angle, in any lighting, even if they've never seen that specific cat before, a task that for decades stumped the most powerful supercomputers. How? Von Neumann theorized that the brain doesn't compute with the rigid logic of true or false. It computes with statistics, with frequencies, with maybes. It operates in a massively parallel way, where the failure of a few neurons is irrelevant to the overall outcome. Inspired by this, he proposed a revolutionary idea. What if we built computers that worked like the brain? Machines that didn't just tolerate flaws, but embraced noise and uncertainty as a fundamental part of their operation. This was the birth of a radical concept: stochastic computing. Instead of a bit being a definitive 0 or 1, it could be a stream of pulses over time. A value of 0.7 might be represented by a stream where 70% of the pulses are 1s and 30% are 0s. This was a machine designed to think in probabilities, not certainties. It was a vision of a computer that accepted the messines of the real world. This wasn't just a theoretical dream. In the labs of that era, pioneers built real machines based on this philosophy. One of the most fascinating was a computer nicknamed Russell. Russell was, by modern standards, a peculiar machine. It was designed to work even if its components were faulty. It transformed what would be a catastrophic failure in a binary computer into a functional part of its operation. If a gate was stuck, producing a stream of constant ones, the system would simply incorporate that stream into its probabilistic calculations. Russell was a living, working proof of concept. It demonstrated that you could build a computing system that was resilient, that was fault-tolerant, that embraced the physical imperfections of its own hardware. It was a glimpse into an entirely different technological future. But the dream was archived. The technology of the time was too slow. Vacuum tubes and early transistors could uncompete with the raw speed and seductive simplicity of the binary world, which was just beginning its exponential explosion under the guidance of Moore's law. The world chose the path of perfection and precision. The idea of a computer that thrived on noise was shelved, a fascinating but impractical relic waiting for its time to come again. For the next 50 years, the binary path seemed unquestionably correct. Moore's law, the observation that the number of transistors on a chip doubles roughly every 2 years, became the engine of the modern world. Transistors shrank to unimaginable sizes, approaching the scale of individual atoms. This relentless pursuit of precision gave us smartphones, the internet, and the first wave of artificial intelligence. But today that relentless march is hitting a wall. A hard physical wall. As we cram billions of transistors into tiny spaces, we face two fundamental problems: energy and heat. Modern data centers, the cathedrals of the digital age, consume more electricity than entire countries. The heat generated by these hyperdense chips is so intense that cooling them is one of the biggest challenges in engineering. We are spending colossal amounts of energy not just to compute, but to maintain the illusion of digital perfection, to force transistors into perfect binary states, and to correct for the quantum noise that inevitably appears at such small scales. Our obsession with absolute control is becoming physically and environmentally unsustainable. The binary dream, the world built on perfect zeros and ones, is becoming too expensive to maintain. The very foundation of our digital world is beginning to melt under the strain of its own success. And now, like an echo from the past, the forgotten dream of von Neumann is returning. A new wave of thinking, driven by the physical limits of our current path, is bringing back a radical idea: probabilistic computing. Companies like Normal Computing, founded by pioneers from Google's own AI labs, are reviving the core concept that noise isn't a flaw to be eliminated, but a resource to be harnessed. Their philosophy is a direct challenge to the last 80 years of computer science. Instead of fighting the inherent messines of physics, they are letting physics do the work. Instead of spending massive amounts of energy forcing a transistor to be a perfect 0 or a perfect 1, they are building chips designed to operate in the noisy, uncertain, probabilistic space in between. They are turning the problem into the solution. This isn't just about saving energy. It's about fundamentally realigning our technology with the way the world actually works. It's a move away from the brittle rigidity of deterministic machines toward the robust, adaptive intelligence we see in nature. So what does a probabilistic chip actually look like? Imagine a transistor operating right on the edge of stability, where tiny thermal fluctuations can cause it to flicker unpredictably between states. In a traditional chip, this is a nightmare source of errors that must be suppressed and corrected. In a probabilistic chip, this is the entire point. These devices, sometimes called p-bits, or probabilistic bits, don't represent a definite 0 or 1. They represent a state of uncertainty, a probability that naturally fluctuates. Instead of forcing numbers into rigid binary registers, these chips work with statistical flows of bits. Complex mathematical operations, especially those at the heart of AI, can emerge naturally from the physical interaction of these noisy components. What we once painstakingly corrected, we can now simply measure and use. This approach is profoundly efficient. It harnesses the natural chaos of the physical world as a computational resource. It's a computer that doesn't fight against the noise of the universe. It surfs on it. It's a machine built not on abstract mathematical logic, but on the inherent statistical nature of reality itself. Here lies the most beautiful irony of our time. The most advanced artificial intelligence models today, the ones that generate breathtaking images, write compelling text, and create stunning video, are themselves born from chaos. Models like DALL-E or Stable Diffusion don't start with a clear picture. They start with pure, random noise, a screen full of digital static, and slowly, step by step, they learn to denoise that chaos into a coherent, meaningful image. The creative process of our most powerful AI is literally one of finding order in chaos, of shaping meaning out of formless noise. And yet we are running this beautiful, chaos-driven software on hardware that was painstakingly designed to eliminate every trace of noise and randomness. There is a fundamental disconnect between the software that mimics intelligence and the hardware that executes it. Probabilistic chips promise to bridge this gap. They offer a future where the hardware and the software speak the same language, the language of probability, uncertainty, and creative chaos. Imagine an AI that doesn't just simulate randomness in its software but harnesses the true, physical randomness of its own hardware. This could lead to AI that is not only vastly more energy efficient, but potentially more creative, more intuitive, and more aligned with the way intelligence truly learns and operates. For decades, digital literacy has meant learning the rigid rules of the machine: how to code, how to operate software, how to navigate structured databases. But as we move into a world guided by probabilistic AI, the skills we need are changing. The most important skill of the future may not be the ability to write precise lines of code, but the ability to have a conversation with an unpredictable intelligence. AI literacy will become as fundamental as reading and writing. It's about learning to prompt, to question, to guide, and to critically evaluate the output of systems that don't deal in absolutes. It's about understanding that an AI-generated answer isn't a fact pulled from a database, but a probable conclusion synthesized from a universe of data. This requires a new kind of thinking, one that is comfortable with ambiguity, that can navigate nuance, and that understands how to collaborate with a machine that thinks in shades of gray. It's less about being a programmer and more about being a navigator, learning to steer a powerful ship on an unpredictable digital ocean. We are standing at a pivotal moment in the history of technology. For the first time since the invention of the transistor, we are questioning its most fundamental premise, the necessity of absolute control. The next era of computing may look radically different. It might be a future where technology doesn't seek to dominate and control nature, but to learn from and integrate with it. Imagine computers that compute by observing, that adapt to their environment, that accept uncertainty as a given, much like a brain, an ecosystem, or a living cell. This is more than just a new type of chip. It's a new technological paradigm. It's a shift from a philosophy of rigid mechanics to one of organic adaptation. It has a future where our technology is not an alien intelligence imposing its perfect logic on a messy world, but one that is woven from the same chaotic, unpredictable, and creative fabric as the universe itself. And this brings us to the final, most important step. This journey isn't just about building better computers. It's about what these new machines can teach us about ourselves. For so long, we have projected our own desire for perfection onto our technology. We built flawless machines because we yearned for a flawless world, free from the mésanges of human error. But what if we've had it backward all along? What if we learn from our own creations that imperfection is not a bug, but a feature? That making mistakes is the only way to truly discover something new? That creativity, resilience, and life itself are born not from perfect control, but from letting go. When our machines finally embrace chaos, perhaps we will learn to do the same. We may learn to value the messy, unpredictable journey of discovery over the sterile perfection of a final answer. The greatest lesson from a computer that thinks with uncertainty might be a deeply human one. That in our flaws, our mistakes, and our glorious imperfections lies our greatest strength. This is a profound shift in how we think about technology, and more importantly, how we think about ourselves. It challenges us to look at the errors in our own lives, the wrong turns, the failed experiments, the unexpected outcomes, and see them not as failures, but as the raw material of growth and creativity. So I want to leave you with a couple of questions to think about. In your own life, where are you chasing an unsustainable perfection? And what chaos or imperfection might you be overlooking? Not as a problem to be solved, but as a source of hidden strength and creativity. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a fascinating conversation, and I'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of chaos and creation. I wish you all the best of health and a mind open to the beautiful imperfections of the world. And if you enjoyed this exploration and want to dive deeper into the ideas that are shaping our future, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay curious.